Okay, we are going to answer this question. This is one of the most common questions that most of the young people ask from me. Can Buddhism be explained through science? First of all, before answering this question, we need to clarify what is the objective of science and what is the objective of Buddhism. The objective of science, to simply say, to observe the outer world, explore the outer world. For an example, science, what science does is it observes this outer world, the planets, how the world works, how the nature works, how the technology works, how the current works, how the atoms, protons, neutrons, quarks, and this dark matter, everything works. The outer world, the material world. While Buddhism explores how it works within you, right? How the world that is within you works. Your mind, your consciousness, your perception, right? How these things form and how these things work. And also, Buddhism gives you the support to make your life, make your inner self better. Okay? So, to simply say, science explores the outer world and Buddhism and spirituality, spiritual practices, explore the inner world. Okay? Now one can ask, can I explain Buddhism and can I prove Buddhism that is true through science? Not always you can do that. Because if you try to understand Buddhism through this perspective of science, through the scope of and through the frame of science, it's something like this. You're trying to explain something that goes into two opposite ways. Because science observes the outer world and Buddhism and spiritual practices observe the inner world. Can you fully explain what is within you through the science? No, because there are some parts that goes beyond the scientific experiments, scientific explanations. Okay? And there are some parts that in spiritual practices and all these practices doesn't agree with science. Okay? So we need to understand that these two things serve different purposes, that we need to use these two things in different contexts and different places because we need both. One can say, I've heard people say that we don't need science, we just need spirituality, we just need Buddhism, we just need meditation. No. Without science, right, without the advancement of the science, how can we thrive? Right? How can we make this world a better place? Look around us, right? Look how many things that science, how much better things that science has made. For an example, I'm talking to you, right? You're watching this video. Why? With the help of the science. Okay? So yes, we need science to thrive. We need science to make this world a better place, right? But we need to understand, science only cannot make this world a better place. Because science can make the material things better, give you the material comfort, make everything convenient, right? Make everything comes to your tip of your hand, right? And understand everything, the complexities of this universe. Science will do that. While Buddhism, spirituality will answer your spiritual problems, right? To make your life a better one, make your inner self more kind, right? More compassionate, more calmer person, right? It will help you to build up your inner qualities, inner values, right? So we need to practice and we need to understand these two things together, but we should not mess these things up. Okay? So then the question is, can Buddhism be explained through science? Up to some part, not everything. Okay, because simply it goes into two different ways. Okay, so we need to understand science as science, right? When we learn science and when we understand science, we need to understand it as it is. And when we come to Buddhism, we should not take the perspective of science to Buddhism and understand it, right? We should understand it as it is, because it serves a different purpose. So when you practice these two in balance, right, And when you understand clearly what are the purpose of these two practices are, then it will be easy for you to practice and develop your outer self and also develop your inner self. Okay, so I hope you got some idea about the science and Buddhism. So I wish you all, may you be healthy, may you be happy, and may you be peaceful. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome and welcome back to another video. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever lied to someone? Well, I know what you're thinking about. You will say to me, well, what are you talking about? We all have lied, right? That is the nature of all of us. Yes, it is the common human nature for all of us to lie, right? I got this question from one of the parents who is visiting our monastery. She asked from me, like, my daughter has this serious bad habit that she always lies to me, right? No matter what she does, she never tells the truth. What's the reason for this and how can I stop this? Then I asked from her, have you ever punished your child or scolded or yelled at your child just because she did a bad thing, she did a wrong thing, and she told the truth? She told you what she did. Have you ever done that? Then she said, yes, I have done it many times, that I have scolded and I have punished my child just because she told the truth, right? And I told her, this is the biggest reason why children lie. And this is the biggest reason that people lie, most of the time. People lie because they're afraid of the punishments, right? And also, people lie because they are being punished in the past, even though they told the truth, right? So that is why I always advise for parents and people. No matter people, who are the people who you're living with, they will do mistakes, they will do wrong things. That is the human nature, right? But make them understand, no matter what bad thing or what wrong thing you did, tell the truth. If you tell the truth, there will be no punishment, there will be no anger in it. If you tell the truth, there will be love, affection, guidance, and understanding. That is what we need to practice, right? People lie because they're afraid of being punished and being afraid of that hurt and pain. And also one of the biggest reasons that people lie is because they're afraid of losing things. Okay, so if we can make an environment for people around us, for our loved ones, that there is this understanding, there is this love and care and guidance, so that they will always tell the truth to you, right? So I want to introduce you to this wonderful practice that we have in monks community, right? Because as monks, right, when we become monks, we get 227 precepts to practice, right? Sometimes these precepts are broken by ourselves, right? Most of the time it is because of lack of mindfulness or lack of awareness, right? Mistakes can happen. If we broke some precept, there is this practice called apati deshana. Apati deshana means if we did a wrong thing, or if we break a precept, what we have to do is we have to go to one of our brother monks and open up it, right? That means tell the mistake that we have done and tell them that I know and I see this mistake as a mistake, and hereafter I am trying my best to be disciplined. Right? And the response from the other party is the most wonderful thing, right? The response always will be that I know and I see this mistake in you as a mistake. I understand that you have done a mistake. So from hereafter, you will be forgiven and you will be guided and you will get the help from the monks community to be disciplined, right? And that is what we all need to have in all of our families and people who we are dealing with, right? We need to have that understanding and guidance and love and care. And then people will always be truthful, right? Because people don't understand what are the bad effects and adverse effects of this lying. Most of the time people say, okay, I can say white lies, right? I can say white lies, so it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't make any bad thing, or it doesn't hurt me. Well, white lies do hurt you, right? Although you said it just because it is a small thing and doesn't hurt anyone, that is the start of a mistake. When you get comfortable with white lies, right, little by little you will get comfortable with big lies. So that is why we should not, that is why the Buddha said, when the Buddha defines that you should stay away from lying, when the Buddha said you should stay away from lying, Buddha never referred to any kind of colors of lie, or white lie, or red lie, or any kind of lie. Buddha said, be truthful, stay away from lying, right? So how can we understand this lying? The lying should be understood that the words that we speak with the intention of fooling someone, right? Putting him in a difficult situation and fooling someone, right? So these kind of words, we should not be spoken, and we should be always truthful, right? Being truthful, in the beginning, it will a little bit hurt a little bit. It will be difficult a little bit. But being truthful has many, many benefits, right? So that is why we need to understand that lying is not good in any way, right? No matter it is a white lie or a red lie or any kind of lie, lie is harmful for all of us, right? If we can try to be truthful, if we can live our life in a truthful way, it will give you a huge satisfaction about your life. When you think about your life, how truthful you have lived, then it will give you a good sense of like happiness into your life. Okay, so if you can create an environment of understanding, love and care and guidance, so then the people around you will not lie to you. Okay, so tell to your children, no matter what you do, tell the truth. If you tell the truth, there will be no punishment, there will be no scolding, and only there will be love, care and guidance. So keep this little advice in your mind and be happy. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome and welcome back to another video. From today's video, we're going to talk about wisdom, how to understand it, and what helps all of us to develop this wisdom. Now, what is the common idea about wisdom in the world? There's this common misunderstanding about wisdom, that is, they say that people who know more and they're wise, right? To be wise, you have to know more. In one sense, it is correct, but it is not always correct, right? The people who know more are not always wise, right? And also, even though you learn more and more, it doesn't mean you become a wise person, right? There's a nice saying about wisdom that says, intelligence or knowledge is to understand that tomato is a fruit, and wisdom is to not to put it in a fruit salad, right? So understand that, yes, knowledge is a power, right? Knowledge is a superpower that gives all of us a good experience about this world and good understanding about this world. But if we did not develop the wisdom, right, if we did not understand what wisdom is, then we may not be able to be wise, right? So what is wisdom? Wisdom can be understood as this. Wisdom is the ability to understand what is good and what is bad. Wisdom is the ability to understand what brings happiness to yourself and to the others, and to implement those things that you can do, right? And also, the Buddha explains about the wisdom as follows. The Buddha says, and what is the power of wisdom? Here, a noble disciple is wise. He possesses the wisdom that discerns arising and passing away, which is noble and penetrative and leads to the complete destruction of suffering. This is called the power of wisdom. Now, according to the Buddha, the wisdom is to understand the reality of life. That means the impermanence of life, right? The Buddha says that the inherent nature of life is that it is subjected to arising and passing away. And arising and passing away. This is the common phenomena of impermanence, right? So if someone can understand and if someone can realize this true nature, and that person is wise. That is the Buddha's explanation about wisdom. Because Buddha always focuses on understanding the reality of life. Okay? So Buddha explains what are the things that helps all of us to develop this wisdom, how to be a wiser person. These are the things that Buddha taught us to be a wiser person. You should implement these. You have to associate these things to be wise. So the Buddha explains these 4 things that helps us to develop wisdom. The first thing is, the Buddha says, association with superior persons will help you to develop the wisdom. That means the people who we associate is really crucial, it's really important when it comes to development of the wisdom, right? There's a wonderful saying that says, who you are is the average of 5 people who you closely associate. Right? Take a look at the people who you closely associate, right? Or 5 people. So who you are is the average of those 5 people. So association is really, really important when it comes to development in life, development in spiritual life and also material life, both, right? So that is why you need to hang out with people, to stay with people who can inspire you, who can motivate you, who can guide you to a correct path, right? So that is why the Buddha says, associate with a person who is superior to you in wisdom, right? In spiritual practice, if you're following the spiritual practice, you have to associate with someone who is superior to you, right? So the Buddha says, always try to be with someone who has higher qualities than you, or someone who has equal qualities to you. But never be with people, never associate with people who has lower qualities than you, right? So that is why the Buddha said, to develop the wisdom, you need to have a good companionship. You need to have a good association with people, right? And the second thing that Buddha explains that helps all of us to develop wisdom is hearing the good Dhamma, right? Hearing about the reality of life, listening to the reality of life. When it comes to a spiritual practice, when it comes to Buddhism, the Buddha says that you need to listen to the Buddha's teachings. You need to learn the Buddha's teachings and wisely reflect on it, right? When you do that, the wisdom develops, right? The Buddha says, proper attention. Next thing is the proper attention. You have to listen to the Dhamma, and also you have to have proper attention when listening and also while practicing. So as the final thing, the Buddha explains, practice in accordance with the Dhamma will help you to develop the wisdom, right? That means when it comes to Buddhist practice, you need to follow the Buddha's path, follow the guidance of the Buddha and practice it. And then you can develop the wisdom in Buddhist practice. So these are the 4 things that helps all of us to develop the wisdom. The first thing is association with superior people, proper people, and good people. Second thing is hearing the good Dhamma, listening to the Buddha's teachings, and proper attention to the Buddha's teachings. And then finally, practice in according to the Buddha's teachings. These are the 4 things that will help us to develop the wisdom in Buddhist path. So I hope you got some idea about wisdom today. So I wish may all of you be happy, healthy, and may all of you be able to be wise in this very life. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome everyone to another video. From today's video, I would like to share some thoughts about going for refuge to these 3 jewels or 3 refuges in Buddhism. Now traditionally, all Buddhists go for refuge to these 3 gems or 3 jewels. And in other words, we call them 3 refuges, right? And it is a traditional way, and most of the time, the traditional Buddhists, they do it as a chanting, right? Whenever they do their prayers, they say, Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, I go for refuge to the Buddha. Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, I go for refuge to the Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings. Sanghang saranang gacchami. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the monastic and the spiritual community. So one can think, okay, it is same like the other religions, you know. You go for refuge, you believe in this Buddha and his teachings and the monastic community. It is same. But if you take a closer look at going for refuge, the process of going for refuge, there's a clear reason. There's a clear reason why we do this, right? And also we have to remember that just because we chanted Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, or just because we chanted that I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, doesn't mean that you truly go for refuge to the Buddha. Okay, so there's a way to do that. So let's discuss how we should do this. First of all, what are these three jewels? The first jewel, or the first refuge in Buddhism, is called Buddha. Buddha is the historical Buddha, the greatest teacher who taught the Buddhist teachings to all of us, the greatest teacher who taught the reality of life. So we consider him as the teacher, right? The guiding light of our life. So why we go for refuge to the Buddha? Sometimes some people can say, okay, now you're believing the Buddha as a god. No, it is not the same way, because Buddha wasn't a god, and nor did the Buddha claim himself to be a god, right? So the Buddha was a simple human like all of us who achieved something beyond that an average human could achieve, the liberation. So why we go for refuge to the Buddha? It is because he's the biggest role model of our life, right? So to have an inspiration from a character, we go for refuge to the Buddha. When we go through the difficult times and hard times in our life, we can always relate to the Buddha's life and say, okay, if Buddha faced such kind of adversities and difficulties, how would Buddha do this, right? So then you can follow the Buddha's life and Buddha's role model. You take the Buddha as the role model, and it becomes the biggest inspiration for our life. So that is why we go for refuge to the Buddha, right? So the correct way to go for refuge to the Buddha is to consider the Buddha as the biggest role model of our life, and to learn from his character and to follow his character as well. Okay? Or even though we cannot follow his fullest character, at least we can try some of his amazing qualities in his life. Okay? So that is the first thing and the first reason why we go for refuge to the Buddha, right? And then the Dhamma, that is the second jewel or the second refuge in Buddhism. Dhamma is the Buddha's teachings. Now, why we go for refuge to the Dhamma? It is to consider it as the framework of our spiritual practice. Buddha taught his amazing teachings for 45 years. And these teachings we consider as the Dhamma, right? So these teachings gives us amazing help to live our life and to understand the true meaning behind our life, right? So to provide this framework, provide this path, we go for refuge to the Dhamma. Now, how to truly go for refuge to the Dhamma is to practice it, right? Follow the Buddha's teachings and practice it. And that is the correct way to go for refuge to the Dhamma, okay? So first we take the role model and we follow his character, and also we follow his teachings, the Buddha's teachings. And third jewel, or the third refuge, is Sangha, the monastic community, the spiritual community, who have achieved the levels of spirituality. Okay, why we go for refuge to the Sangha, or this monastic community or the spiritual community, is to give us the support for our spiritual practice. Because we all know we can't do this all alone. We need a community. Everyone needs a community of people to grow. So when we get together and when we get in touch with this spiritual community, we can take advice from them. We can take the experiential advice from them and grow ourselves, right? So as a help, as a support for our spiritual practice, we go for refuge to the Sangha, the monastic community. So this is why we go for refuge. And this is the real reason behind going for refuge to the Triple Gems. So I hope you got some idea about the three refuges in Buddhism. So I wish you all, may all of you be healthy, happy, and peaceful. Namo Buddhaya. We all know how difficult it feels when after doing something or saying something, the same mind that forced us to do that action, the same mind that pushed us to do that action, turns back at us and say, why did you do that? Why did you say that? You shouldn't have done that. We spend a lot of time regretting about our past actions, the things that we have done or said in the past. It turns out 75% of people spend a significant amount of their lifetime regretting about either about past or being fear about the future, right? So if you think that you're the only person who is regretting about the past actions, you are not. We all are. We all are in the same boat, right? So the Buddha realized that regretting over the past actions is one of the biggest issues when it comes to the peace of the human mind. So that is why the Buddha gives a straightforward answer for this question, how to stay away from regrets in life. The Buddha says, first, be mindful about your actions. And by doing something, if the result leads to suffering of yourself or suffering to others, stay away from doing such actions. That is the first thing to do, right? But how to put it into action? How to not to collect the things or to do things that brings regret to our life? So the Buddha gave us an amazing advice to practice this, amazing practice. Buddha describes this to his former son, Rahula. Before becoming the Buddha, he was a prince and he had a son. His name was Rahula. Later he became a monk, right? And he gave this amazing advice to Venerable Rahula. The Buddha asked from Venerable Rahula, Rahula, what do you think? What is the purpose of a mirror? Then Venerable Rahula says, the purpose of a mirror is to see the reflection, check the reflection, sir. Then the Buddha says, in the same way, Rahula, you have to understand that before doing something or before saying something, you have to thoroughly reflect on that action. You have to ask from yourself that this action that I'm wishing to do, will it bring suffering to my life? Will it bring suffering to others' life? Am I doing this action with an unwholesome mind? If the answer is yes, then the Buddha says, by all means, you have to stay away from such actions. Because the things that we do with an unwholesome mind, the Buddha says that the end result is the suffering. So the Buddha explains this in the first verse in the Dhammapada. The Buddha says, if someone did something with an unwholesome mind, suffering follows that person like a cart wheel follows an ox, right? So what Buddha teaches us is that before doing something or before saying something, just wisely reflect on it, right? Thoroughly reflect on it. What will be the consequence of this action? Is it going to hurt myself? Is it going to hurt others, right? And then the Buddha says, when you reflect on your actions, if you found out that the actions that you are wishing to do will bring happiness to yourself, the actions that you are going to do will bring the happiness to other people, and if you are doing this action with an wholesome mind, by all means, do that, because that brings the peace and happiness to your life. So that is where the practice of mindfulness comes into play, right? Because in mindfulness, we don't do things mindfully. What we do is we become mindful about what we do, right? We understand why we are doing what we are doing, right? Most of the time, the reason why we collect regretful actions to our life is because we don't know why we are doing what we are doing, right? So the first step is to understand what is the purpose of this action? What is the intention behind my actions? When you become mindful about the consequence of such actions, then you can make a good choice to stay away from the things that brings the regret to our life, right? So that is the first thing to do. The first thing is to be mindful and to thoroughly reflect on our actions and to stay away from the things that brings the regret to our life. That is the first step. And then the Buddha realized that as an average person,
You can't reflect on each and every action that you do, right? That mindfulness is not that developed enough for each and every person. So as an average person, we all will make mistakes. We will all do wrong things. Then the Buddha gave an amazing solution for this problem, for this regret. The Buddha says, if you have done something that is regretful, do not hide it. That is what Buddha says. The Buddha says, if you have done something, if you are regretting about a past action, if you are regretting about something that you have done in the past or said in the past, first thing you have to do is you should not hide it. Find a person who can understand you. The Buddha says that reveal it to your spiritual teacher, right? Find a person who can understand you, or reveal it to your spiritual companions, right? Find a community of people who can understand you, who does not judge you, who can give a good guidance to you, and reveal it to them, right? Do not hide it. Do not conceal it. Open it up in front of wise people. Now, there are two amazing things that happens when you reveal yourself or when you confess yourself in front of wise people. What are the two things? The first thing is that it frees up your mind, right? It releases your stress and the tension and that negative energy that is building up in your mind, right? And that will lead to not to repeat this same action again and again. The problem with concealing and hiding a past mistake is that the more we hide it, the more there will be a probability for it to repeat. If you reveal it, then it frees up it releases your heart, right? And also it releases that negative energy that is building up within you. That is the first thing that happens to you. The second thing is that you will get a wonderful guidance, good guidance to overcome that action, right? You will get the help from the community around you, right? So the first thing is to not to do something that is regretful. That is the first thing to do. To do that, we need to build up the mindfulness, right? And to reflect on our actions before doing them. And the second thing is that if there are things that we are regretting about the past, we have to reveal it. You have to talk about it and let it out from your heart. So these are the two things that we have to do when it comes to regret. So the Buddha showed us that understanding the mistake as a mistake and accepting it and disciplining yourself to not to repeat it again will help you to free up your mind and bring peace and happiness to all of our minds. So that is why we all need, and it is very important for all of us to practice the mindfulness, practice the reflection on our own actions, and also to be brave enough to confess the mistakes that we have done in the past. So I hope you got some idea about this mindfulness and confession. So hope to see you in another video. See you in the next week. Namo Buddhaya.
The Buddha once said, "He who sits alone, lies down alone, walks alone, in diligent practice, and alone tames himself, should find delight in living in the forest." Living alone, being alone, can be scary for many people these days. Oftenly, our society portrays a successful life, a happier life, a good life, as a life where it is surrounded by people, surrounded by things. But there's a reason why almost all the spiritual practices, almost all the spiritual pathways praise and promote this living alone, life in the place of a solitude practice, a solitude life. And that is why almost all the religious leaders had to solitude themselves from these hassles and bustles of this society and go to these quiet places and find the liberation and find what they were looking for. Same went with the Supreme Buddha. Before he became the Buddha, he was a prince. He was living in a palace. He was indulging himself with this sensual pleasure. And then he understood, indulging in this sensual pleasure doesn't help me to find what I'm looking for. So what he did was he left the palace and he went from one forest to another, meditating, finding this peace, this ultimate peace, right? So living alone can be a blessing.
It is a blessing when it is converted to a blessing, right? But living alone can be a curse as well for many people. That is why people most of the time they are scary. They're afraid of living alone, right? Most of the time people come to me and say, I'm lonely, I'm living alone, I'm living by myself, but I feel so much lonely, so much negative thoughts coming into my mind. What should I do? That is what happens when you turn this loneliness into a curse. Trust me, it all depends on how you think and how you use this time. I will tell you a story. Prince Siddhartha, the Buddha, left the palace and he went to a forest. Although he went to a forest, there were 5 monks who was waiting for him to come to the forest. There were 5 monks who were helping Prince Siddhartha, the Buddha, with the meditation before his awakening. And then these 5 monks had this idea that only way to find the liberation is by giving this tortures and doing these hard meditations and harsh meditations and extreme meditations. So we call it Atta Kilamatthana Yoga, which we can translate into English as self-mortification, right? Now, Prince Siddhartha left one extreme when he left the palace. That extreme is, the Buddha described this as the extreme of sensual pleasures, indulging in the sensual pleasures. That was one extreme. And then Prince Siddhartha came to the other extreme where he practiced this self-mortification, giving these extreme and harsh meditations to the body. And then those 5 monks, they believed that this is the only way for the liberation. So Prince Siddhartha was practicing these meditations for 6 years. And finally he understood this extreme, being in this extreme, doesn't help me either. So then he found the middle path, the middle way. And that is to live a spiritual life by balancing his material and spiritual life both, right? And that is why after that decision, he decided to take some food to his body. After a long time he had taken some food to his body, he grabbed his alms bowl and went on begging alms and find some food and had it. Now all those 5 monks had a lot of expectations on Prince Siddhartha. And then they saw this incident. And then they became disappointed. They said, oh, what a disappointment. We believed him. We had a lot of expectations on him. But look what now happened. He's taking food. Maybe soon he will go back to his palace and he will live a normal life again. So the best decision is to leave him. So what happened? All these 5 monks left Prince Siddhartha. And after this alms round, he came back to the forest and he saw everyone had left. No one was there. Prince Siddhartha was alone. Then he found this perfect environment, perfect place to be focused more into himself. That was because he was all alone. Right? He got the opportunity to be by himself, right? Focus more into himself. And one day, he sat under the Bodhi tree and he became awakened. He became enlightened, right? So this solitude, when it is turned to, when it is used in the correct way, it can be a blessing for you, right? And the same solitude can be turned into a curse as well. Right? Most of the people, they complain me about the loneliness. I always say to them, when you're lonely, your thought process generates a certain energy within you. Right? And that can be negative. Now let's say you are in this negative energy environment and a negative energy thought process. You all know in science we learn about, according to science, it says that energy cannot be produced or destroyed. Now you have your energy within you, but it is negative, right? Now you can't destroy this negative energy, right? What we are trying in this whole life is to destroy this negative energy. Well, we can't do that. The only thing that we can do is to convert this negative energy, drive this negative energy to something positive, right? So how can we drive this loneliness, this energy to something positive? One of the biggest reasons why people feel lonely is because they lack an aim, a goal to their life. If they have a goal and aim that they should work on, if they have a system that they should work on, then they don't feel that much lonely because they have something to do. They have something to engage with it, right? So this can go either, people can have either material goals or spiritual goals, but everyone must have these spiritual goals within themselves, no matter what life they are coming from, right? Because finally, there will be a time in all of our lives that we come to this lonely place. One day we have to be by ourselves with no one else around us, right? At that time, if we don't have any quality, any spiritual quality that we have practiced within us, we'll start feeling lonely again and again. And it will start to build up this negative energy within us, okay? And sometimes we can be too late for that to make it correct. So the best thing is to learn how to convert this negative energy to something positive, right? To do that, you have to have a goal and an aim for yourself, to yourself. Always ask from yourself, what should I do in my life? Who should I become in my life? What should I build up? What qualities should I work on in my life? If you found, we will always find some qualities that we should work on, right? Some mistakes that we have, some weaknesses within us. If we can work on those weaknesses and make it correct, that time will help you to be more successful, more productive, right? More happy and a more peaceful person. But to do that, what do you need? You need time, right? You need time to be focused on yourself. And what gives you the best time to be focused on yourself is the time when you are all alone, right? And that is why I always say for people, have a time during the day only for yourself, a separate time. Probably people call it me time. Okay, that's a good thing. Having a me time for yourself during the day is essential. Okay, so I would say as a practical thing, apply it to your life. That is to have a separate, at least 15 minutes. It's okay, no matter how much you spend the time, but if it is for yourself, that is helpful, right? At least spend a 15 minutes of time, right? Sitting down, being by yourself, all alone, right? Not with your mobile phones, not with your Netflix account, not with your movies or anything. Just be by yourself, right? And then learn how to be with your own thoughts, right? Then only we can be more focused to ourselves, right? So I hope you got some idea about how to convert this loneliness into the solitude. So apply this little practice to your life and enjoy the solitude in your life. Namo Buddhaya.
One of the questions that people ask from me is that they ask, is it easy being a monk? Well, I give them the answer, no, it's not easy, right? So many people think that after becoming a monk, all the problems will disappear like you're floating on a peaceful cloud, Trust me, it doesn't happen, right? Monk's life is difficult, as same as any other life, right? It is not easy because if you look at our life, right, where no matter what the life is, right, no matter what level of life is, there will always be difficulties, problems, challenges. That is the nature of life. That is what the Buddha said to us. The Buddha said that is the first noble truth. What is it? Dukkha. Where there is birth, there is dukkha. There is this unsatisfied nature. There is this suffering. There is this nature of unsatisfaction, dissatisfaction. So you may think, if you're thinking that after becoming a monk, all the problems will disappear. It doesn't happen, right? But here's the thing. Yes, there is some part of the problems that you face as a householder. After becoming a monk, they will disappear, right? That is made from this lifestyle itself, right? For an example, as a householder, you have to maintain a family life, right? A family. So that part is not there in the monk's life. And as a householder, you have to have these relationships. You have to have your husband or wife, children. As a monk, you don't have them, right? And also, then as a householder, you will get invited to a lot of occasions, parties, weddings, and all the stuff. As monks, we don't go to the weddings and parties, right? So we live in the monastery. So those kind of problems, those kind of things, they will be removed by the lifestyle itself. But that doesn't mean the lifestyle becomes this monk's life is easier. Because we also have some other duties to do, right? We have also other responsibilities to do. After doing all of those things, there are the things that are easier to do actually. At the end of the day, after becoming a monk, what you're really focusing on is your spirituality, your mind. A monk is someone who is totally dedicated to the spiritual practice, his own spiritual practice, and also the spirituality and the spiritual development of the people around him. So when you work on that, right, you will face a lot of difficulties, a lot of challenges. One of the biggest challenges that we face as monks is to discipline our mind. Right? As soon as you become a monk, your mind is not ready to become a monk. Okay? I always say this for people, that it takes very few minutes to make a monk physically, like become a monk physically. But it takes a lifelong practice to become a monk within, from the mind. Okay? So we are on the path of making our mind a monk. Okay? So understand that becoming a monk is not easy. Okay, same as any other life. They will have problems. They will have difficulties, right? And also, I would like to say, yes, monk's life is difficult, but monk's life is beautiful. Why do I say difficult? Because there are some difficulties, challenges that you face as any other life. That is one part. Okay? And why would I say that monk's life is beautiful is that the lifestyle is made your life to be so much simple. For an example, we don't have much clothes, right? We only have 3 robes to wear. And also we don't have many things that as materials. For an example, we have only 3 robes, and we have only 1 alms bowl, and also a couple of books that we are using. And all the other utensils that we use in the monastery they're for the monastery, right? When we leave the monastery, we have to leave them behind and you have to go. The only thing that remains with you that you consider as yours, your materials, is your 3 robes and some couple of books, and also your alms bowl. That is the only thing that is remain. So the lifestyle is made to make your life so much simpler. Okay? And the practices that we do, the monastic practices that we do, is made to make your life so much simpler and easier. And the precepts that we follow, that was given by the Buddha, the codes that we follow, is made to make the monk's life so much simpler, hassle-free, and more focused into the spirituality. So yes, there is one part of the beautiful part of the monk's life. Okay, that is beautiful. And the other part that I love to enjoy in monk's life is that being a monk, you get the opportunity to meet so many people, right? Being a preaching monk, I get this opportunity. I'm very lucky to have this in my life. I get to meet a lot of people. I get to meet a lot of people, and I get to talk with them. Right? I can listen to their ideas. I can listen to their problems. I can share the Buddha's teachings with them and help them. And when I share the Buddha's teachings with them and when they get the help, it gives me a great happiness, right? So that part I love to enjoy. Okay. And also another beautiful thing that you find in monk's life is that every single morning when you wake up, you have something wholesome to do, something that is selfless to do, right? When you wake up and when you clean your monastery, when you do the monastic chores, it gives you that idea that yes, you're doing something for yourself as well as the others also. So these are the parts that we enjoy as monks, okay? And also one part, this is not only separated for monks' life, but also anyone can do that. We enjoy by listening and learning the Buddha's teachings, okay? You get a lot of time to learn the Buddha's teachings and observe and analyze the Buddha's teachings and practice the Buddha's teachings. So these are the beautiful parts of the monk's life. So don't think that monk's life is easy and hassle-free and problemless. No, as any other life, we also have problems, but we are working through them, right? We are practicing our mind to make our mind strong enough to face these problems, face these challenges through the Buddha's teachings. So I hope you got some idea about monk's life. So I wish you, may you be happy and may you be healthy. Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Buddhaya. The other day when I was doing a speech, there came a question from the audience. The question said, no matter how much I planned the new year, I failed to achieve these goals at the end. What is the reason? And turns out this is a problem for many people, right? We all plan the new year, we all plan in the beginning, but we fail at the end. What is the problem? The reason for this problem is we are trying to do more. But in reality, what makes your dreams come true, what helps you to achieve the goals in your life is not by doing more. It is by doing less. But it is a little bit contradictory to the society, the idea of the society, no? Because the society will say to you that do more and then you will achieve more. But in reality, to achieve more, you should not do more. You have to do less. Now, what do I mean by doing less? Doing less means doing something that is important. Removing all the unnecessary, unimportant things in your life and doing what is important. Giving the priority to what is important, what matters the most, right? And also, if you give this priority to what is important to you, right? If you ask the question, what is important to me in my life? What should I build up? What qualities should I build up in my life to make my life a success? And now you focus on that quality, the important task, important goal, and you keep doing it, right? The reason why we fail to achieve the important things in life, because our important goals, our main goals, our crucial goals are covered with these unimportant things, unimportant achievements in life, which does not help us in the long run, okay? And also there's another problem, and that is we have lots of expectations. That means too much expectations. It is okay to have expectations, right? It is okay to have dreams, it is okay to have goals, but it is not okay to have too much expectations. Why? Because sometimes when we have too much expectations, our expectations and our reality have a big gap. It has a big gap, right? So when we fail to achieve these expectations, what happens to our mind is we become discouraged because we are not getting what we expected. And then what happens? We suffer. We hate ourselves. We blame ourselves. The more we blame, the more we hate ourselves, the less we try to achieve things, because we label ourselves, okay, I can't do these things. I'm not someone who is courageous. I'm not someone who is brave to do these things, right? No matter how much I try, I fail. That is the nature of mine. The more you label that, the more you give that name to yourself, I am a failure, I can't do these things, what happens? The more you can't do those things.
right? So the most important thing is to have moderate expectations. It is not to have, I'm not saying that you should not have expectations. Yes, you should have, right? And also you should not have too much expectations, right? You have to find that sweet spot. You have to have that moderate expectations. I will do my best. This is one advice that was given to me when I started preaching and giving speeches. One of my elder monks, one of my brother elder monks, he said to me, when you step into the stage, don't think that you're going to ace the speech and you're going to earn a standing ovation from the audience. Don't think that. Don't think about it. And also, don't walk into the stage without lack of confidence, right? You have to have a confidence that is moderate, right? You have to have a confidence that is moderate where you think yourself, I will do my best, right? I come to this stage, I step into this stage to share something valuable from the Buddha's teachings, and I will do my best to share it. It is when you have that moderate expectations, what happens? Although you fail at some points, right? You know that you will fail. You have accepted that, yes, you are imperfect, you will fail in life, right? And that failure, the pain from that failure is less painful than when we have the high expectations. So the most important thing is to have moderate expectations. And one of the most important qualities that we need to have in our mind to achieve the goals and the dreams in our life is to focus on little changes in life, not the big changes. Most of the time people ask, like, how can I change my life in a bigger way? How can I make big changes in my life? To make big changes in your life, start from making little changes. That is what helps you that is what makes you the bigger changes in life, right? For an example, like, let's say you're in a stressful condition, right? You're stressed and you're worried about things, and you feel like you're going through like a dark hole. What can you do? You try to solve the problem, right? You try to solve the bigger problem. But the reason for that bigger problem is not always the immediate reason. The reason for a big problem is not always the immediate reason. It is a series of problems, series of changes that had happened throughout our life, and it make that big change, big problem. So what do you have to do? Go into the roots of the problem. What made it change? What went wrong? And when you find that smallest mistake that made it wrong, you have to correct that. You have to make that correct and work upward, right? Let's say you feel a little bit stressed or anxious, or you feel the negative energy around you. What can you do to stop this? First, stand up, and then you can clean your surrounding, right? By cleaning the surrounding, it adds some sort of a positive energy around you. And after that, you can meditate a little bit. Clean yourself, clean your body a little bit, clean your clothes, right? Clean your surroundings. That positive energy will make a little bit of positive change in your life. And that positive change will lead you to make big changes, big positive changes in life, right? So one of the most important things is to focus on little changes, right? That is why in Dhammapada, the Buddha says, by degrees, little by little, from moment to moment, a wise man removes his own impurities, as a smith removes dross of silver or gold. Now, when a silversmith or a goldsmith, when he cleans the silver or like a block of silver or gold, he or she can't do it easily, right? It takes a big time, right? It takes a huge time to clean this block of gold, right? In the same way, little by little, you have to improve little by little, right? So that is why I found this wonderful quote that I read recently. It says, learn a little bit, apply a little bit, improve a little bit every single day. Isn't that wonderful? Learn a little bit, apply a little bit, improve a little bit every single day. That is what we have to do. So I invite all of you to learn a little bit and apply a little bit and improve a little bit and change a little bit in this new year. So I wish you all, may all of you be happy and healthy. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. If you were to choose one book for the rest of your life and to keep it with you and carry around wherever you go, what book would you choose? Well, for me, it is this book. This book has literally changed my life in many ways. And whenever I feel down, whenever I feel stressed, I take out this book and read 2 or 3 pages and I find the answer for my problem. Well, if you ask, and this book is very famous that it is considered the handbook of Buddhists, right? Now, if you ask, what is the religious book of Christians? You can clearly say it is the Bible. What is the religious book of Muslims? You can clearly say it is Al-Quran. What is the religious book of Judaism? You can say it is Torah. What is the religious book of Hinduism? It is the Bhagavad Gita. Well, if you ask from a Buddhist, what is your religious book? Then they will say, oh, we don't have one book. We have an array of books. There are a lot of books when it comes to religious scriptures in Buddhism. But out of all these religious scriptures books, right, in Buddhism, this book is considered the handbook of all the Buddhists. So this book is none other than the Dhammapada itself, right? So Dhammapada has literally changed my life in many ways. So what is Dhammapada? Dhammapada is a set of verses that was preached by the Buddha himself. Now there are 423 verses in this collection and it is divided into 26 chapters, each explaining different kind of topics like happiness, like violence or loving kindness, or about the wise man, about the foolish, or about the Buddha, right? So it contains a lot of verses which explains about the life as well, right? And I would recommend that whenever you feel down, whenever you feel stressed, if you have this Dhammapada book with you, you can take it out and read 2 or 3 pages and I'm pretty sure that you will find the answer for your problem, right? I have heard from a lot of my Hindu friends that they're using the Bhagavad Gita whenever they feel down, then whenever they feel stressed, they take this Bhagavad Gita and they read 2 or 3 pages and they find the answer for their problem. Well, for the Buddhists, in the Buddhist practice, I would highly recommend Dhammapada book to use as the handbook of every person. Dhammapada has a lot of advices and life lessons that they are wonderful. So let's take some time to read 2 or 3 verses and see how wonderful they are. In Dhammapada verse number 103, the Buddha says, though one may conquer 1,000 times 1,000 men in battle, yet he indeed is the noblest victor who conquers himself. So the Buddha says, no matter how much you conquer, no matter how much you battle in the battleground, the most difficult war is to conquer yourself, to win yourself. See how wonderful it is. In the next verse, the Buddha says, self-conquest is far better than the conquest of others. Not even a god, an angel, Mara or Brahma can turn into defeat the victory of such a person who is self-subdued and ever restrained in conduct. So the Dhammapada contains such kind of verses which gives you the inspiration or the motivation, the strength to build up yourself, to focus more into yourself. And also in Dhammapada verse 166, the Buddha says, let one not neglect one's own welfare for the sake of another, however great. Clearly understand one's own welfare, let one be intent upon the good. So the Buddha says, no matter what happened, first of all, you have to focus on yourself, your own welfare. If you made your own welfare, if you protect yourself, then only you can protect others and help others in the correct way, right? So it helps you to be more self-conscious, more self-focused, and to build up yourself. In verse number 290, the Buddha says,
If by renouncing a lesser happiness, one may realize a greater happiness, let the wise man renounce the lesser, having regard for the greater. Now, I find this verse is so important and so inspiring, right? Because for me especially, when I'm living as a monk, sometimes I have found a little bit stressed out, like times where I feel down and stressed out. Right? Then I always think, okay, you're intending a greater happiness. You're going to achieve a greater happiness. Then you must be willing to let go of that lesser happinesses, cheaper happinesses, if you are focused on a greater happiness, right? In the same way, for the normal life, it's the same way, right? If someone is working towards a greater happiness or a greater goal in his life, then he or she has to let go of that cheaper happinesses, that daily cheaper happinesses that keeps that person away from achieving that greater happiness, right? So Dhammapada contains such valuable and inspiring life lessons, advices. So I invite all of you to take this book, buy this book, or maybe find this book and read it, right? So I will link down below all the links that you need to read this book. You may find some PDFs. You may find some online links that I will provide some online links that you can read. And also, if you are willing to buy the book, right, buy the hard book, I will link down some links for that you can buy the book online, right? So when it comes to Dhammapada, there are lots of translations. But the translations that I would recommend is, the first translation is by Venerable Acharya Buddha Rakkhita, right? This translation is very good and very precise. It contains very high level of English, but it is very precise, right? And also, there's another translation that I would highly recommend. That is the translation from my teacher, Venerable Kiribati Jnanananda Thero. In this book, you may find all the verses in the most simplest and easy to understand form, right? So if you can buy this book, and these are the two translations that I would recommend for all of you. So I invite all of you to buy or read it online or find PDFs and read these books, read this Dhammapada book, and then you will find a lot of valuable life lessons. So that is all for today. I wish you all, may you be healthy and may you live in peace. Namo Buddhaya.